Hey again, everyone. It's me, Bland, your host, or I guess ex-host, and I'm signing off and passing things off to you, Doodleplex. Say hi.
Hi, how are you? How are you, chat? Happy time zone friends. Welcome to No Glitches Allowed 2026. As Lan said, I am your host, Doodleplex. I am so happy to be here for the next couple of runs, including our very next run. LaurieDBunnykins is running Metro Gravity. So why don't we get that started? Laurie, it's all yours.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Metro Gravity. My name is LaurieDBunnykins, and I am a runner of a bunch of weird indie games, and this one is incredible. I'm so excited for this run. Before we start, I want to thank you all for donating to the costume bid war. I'm aware that the Goth Witch won. Great choice. I think the current world record holder used it in their current run. So, you know, costume of taste. Thankfully, this game has a really cool feature where once a costume is unlocked, you can use it on any save file. So we're going to get the whole time. Time is going to start just as soon as I start a new save file. There's going to be like 3 text boxes, and time will start when I skip the last one. We usually use an in-game timer for this game. This is just kind of the closest starting point to that. So without further ado, time is just going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. So here's our winning costume, as I mentioned. I specify Goth Witch because Stephanie's default outfit is kind of like already witchy. You can see it in the portrait and the dialogue throughout the run. But yeah, Metro Gravity is a very cool 3D like puzzle Metroidvania. You can obviously tell there's a lot of influence from games like Pseudo Regalia. If you like that game, I think this game captures that style of exploration very well. But we're also going to get into kind of the physics part of the game. I think this game also does a really good job doing in like the Portal school of very simple physics puzzles with very weird physics altering items. The first thing we're going to get here is just our ability to use weapons. But you're also going to see this like lock symbol a lot. This is concentration. It pretty much lets me toggle whether gravity is going to snap to like whatever surface I land on, or whether it's locked to a certain like plane, I guess. And that's really nice because right now when we don't have a lot of movement, the main way we're going to get around the map is by falling, mainly. Just trying to find ways to maximize our speed with no tools. So like here you're gonna see me clip to the side of this tunnel and fall down it. And that's like notably a little bit faster than walking the whole thing. But here we're gonna get our first item, the Gravity Amulet. The Gravity Amulet is pretty cool. It allows us to create these like little wells that shift the gravity of anything in them. They not only allow us to start kind of the physics puzzle mantra of the game, by allowing us to manipulate objects like you're going to see with this water ball right here. But also, it's mainly what will allow us at certain points in this run to shift our gravity in midair, which is going to be really cool for getting really high speeds at certain parts. I'm going to use it for this like little water block puzzle here, where I'm actually going to skip a decent chunk of the puzzle by sitting the water block on my head as it spawns, which is a really fun little strat. And now, real quick, I'm going to explain saving and quitting, because that's a feature in this game. You can close the game at any time. This game does have preset checkpoints, these computers. You see one right there. However, in this game, when you save and quit, it saves whatever progress like you had while warping you back to your last computer. So I like went back to earlier in the game with this pocket mirror that I picked up from that house, which lets us do this parry move. So we're gonna get a lot of value out of like saving and quitting throughout the whole game, because it allows us almost like an unintentional form of fast travel with a lot more control over where we can go. But as we get into this like fight here to open this gate to my left, you'll see these like parries, these circles. You'll see a metronome in the bottom right. This game is very like music and rhythm focused. In particular, it likes to train your polyrhythms, so we're gonna get some very funny parry patterns later in the game. There's actually a puzzle where we skip a parry pattern that needs you to hit like notes on the 7. But it's a really fun aspect of this game, and the game gets even more musical as it goes on, which we are close to the first boss, so I get to talk about it there. For now, though, we are just going to be doing a few quick puzzles involving the gravity amulet and just like general gravity to light all these torches. So Doodle, if you have any quick announcement you'd like to make, now is a great time before the first boss.
Sure, I very much do. I would like anyone who isn't aware of what we're here for, that we are here for raising money for the Go Rescue, a dog shelter in Hampton, Virginia. Go Rescue works to provide a haven for homeless dogs, giving them time, care, and love they need not to find just any home, but the right home. And the way you can do that is by putting !donate in the chat. We do have, Laurie was talking about music and such like that. We have a milestone incentive chat. We need to get to $2,222.22. I do love a good even number to get Spin Rhythm into our marathon. So chat, let's get there. Let's have more music.
And speaking of music, just in time, we are here at the first boss fight. So these boss fights are... There's not really much we can do to speed them up generally. They're more of these like musical sequences, I guess, which sounds unfortunate in a speedrun context, but there's one really fortunate part of them actually, and that's just that they're really damn cool. So this is the Doctor. He's pretty simple. He's our first boss, and we're gonna get a pretty good item for beating him, but for the most part, I'm gonna maybe just like let this fight ride out so you can all enjoy the music and the spectacle of it all. I'm also going to try to high score these bosses. You see I'm gaining score on the right. I gain score by just like hitting the boss, and my multiplier goes up whenever I parry an attack and goes down whenever I get hit. So for the sake of like the showcase, I'm gonna try and score as high as I can on these bosses, but I don't need to. We're just here to enjoy the ride, really.
This music is so good.
Yeah, shoutouts to this being one of those games where every time a new music track starts, it shows a little banner with the song name. I love when games do that. I remember when people thought Deltarune was going to do that because they did it for one song.
Did?
Yeah, they do it for like Fields of Hopes and Dreams, and then like never again. All the way back in Chapter 1, which I still think is weirdly funny. I don't know why I like that so much. But this is the end of the first boss. They're doing saw blades on the wall. I think you used to be able to get like weirdly high amounts of height off the saw blades, but it just stopped working for me for some reason, so I want to not die after the boss is done. But that's the end of the Doctor. That is the first fight of the game, and we are going to get the needle and thread for beating him. The needle and thread is my personal favorite item in the game, because it seems very innocuous at first. This is kind of a physics puzzle game, and like, sure, the gravity amulet has movement uses, but the needle and thread seems a little... It's both more and less obvious at first. So the needle and thread is introduced as this item that it attaches objects together so that you can do fun physics things with them. However, if you are in midair and you attach yourself to something with the needle and thread, you can start swinging around like Spider-Man. This is ridiculously good for movement. I feel like I don't have to explain why. But it's also so fun. But at this point of the game, we are at the point where it kind of opens up. Once we beat the first boss, our goal is to get to the other 3 bosses in the game. They all have, like... We just need to beat the other 3 bosses to gain access to the final portion of the game. And at this point, it's pretty open-ended. We can do it in any order. which actually brings us here to the Gambler's Palace. This is the area that we're actually going to fight the boss from last. But the like conceit of getting to the boss of this area is like there's these like swords that are holding up a chandelier, and we need to detach the chain from each of them. And this one is so out of the way in the dungeon itself that it's faster to just like go hit the sword now using that like hidden path and then save and quit back to being normal about it. Right now, the goal of the run, obviously, as I just mentioned, is to like get those 3 bosses down so we can gain access to the final boss. But there's a little bit more we can do in that time because there are actually 2 items left that we have yet to pick up that will be required to like make it to those bosses. So I am going to take the opportunity now to just kind of rush getting those 2 items. Firstly, that will bring us to an area over here after I do this small puzzle. This is the Red Desert. The Red Desert is a really cool area. Unfortunately, the run hardly uses it. We just kind of go here, fall down here, and there's going to be an NPC trapped in an hourglass. And we need to do 1 puzzle. This puzzle is, this is like a recurring puzzle type in the game, but this is the only time the run does it. There is going to be a soccer ball, and you'll see this like grassy floor. The soccer ball cannot have its gravity shifted. It will always, like, its gravity direction will always be that of the grass floor. And you have to guide it into the net, which for us gives us the key to open the hourglass. This will give us the plate. The plate is a pretty good item. It pretty much just allows us to do a giant stomp move, which already sounds good. Like I've mentioned how like falling down to the ground is like good and fast pretty often. But the fun part of the plate is that there is actually a little stomp, like jump move we can do out of it, like that. And the further you fall, the better this jump is. So you're gonna see me try and set myself up a lot throughout this run to like fall and like get a lot of height out of that. Here we're going to get a checkpoint. I need to make sure it actually says map updated. That is one of the most important elevators in the run for fast travel. But now we get to do a pretty fun section here. There are these 2 chains we have to hit to open a door, and we get to do 2 little puzzles to like break them. This one is really, really interesting. I'm going to use the needle and thread to pull an enemy that's on the other side of this gate, like closer to me. And that's going to allow me to fight the enemy like through the gate, like as you can see. And beating this enemy will open the gate. So it saves a pretty decent amount of time because it means I don't have to get to the other side. After this, I'm going to set up this puzzle in a specific way so I can just kind of swing across and the platform will eventually open the gate for me. And there's the lasers that usually guard the gate to the other enemy attacking me, but I know how to just get out of their way. I am not swinging the right way. That's fine. I just gotta go over here. There we go. This other puzzle is a lot simpler. We just have to do some gravity stuff correctly. We just have to like pull this with the string because these 2 doors are attached, so we can't just like gravity emulate that door like we did the first one. And that is going to be the last item we need for the run. The handy wrench is in this room. Handy wrench, unfortunately, isn't really a movement item like the others. It just allows us to like rotate things like this to open doors. But it's still fun. There are some really fun puzzles in a specific area that take pretty good use of it. But for now, I'll focus on where I am, which is going to be the archives. As I mentioned, this portion of the run was kind of dedicated to getting the items we would need to finish puzzles in the late game. We pretty much have those now. So our goal is going to just be rushing those 3 boss fights that we need to beat to finish the game. Starting off in the archives, every area kind of has a similar structure to what I mentioned with the like swords that we got earlier, where you're going to need to open a boss door by like hitting enough switches or something of the like. And they'll each have their own like gimmick of how you handle the area. For the archives, it is this electricity. Whenever you connect 2 edges of a battery together, you can create an electrical current, which can do things like open doors or just like various electricity things, I guess. And you get to see it in pretty cool effect. Pretty much the main draw of electricity is that if your thread is getting like collided with by some sort of solid object, like these bookcases, it will break the circuit and not conduct any electricity. So you have to kind of carefully construct these currents. I usually like to do this puzzle up here. I had my gravity wrong. There we go, I think. Where am I? No, that was right. That was right. That was wrong. Hello? Where am I? Does that create my current? It creates my current. That should be good? Yeah, there we go. Okay, I just completely lost control of my gravity in this room. I don't fully know what happened, but we figured it out. Yeah, there's the main conceit. You gotta, like, position that block correctly. But then the other part of this room actually has something pretty cool. Once we get in here, we're gonna have a pretty similar puzzle, just like connect these batteries correctly so that they're not going through any wall. But then there's gonna be this like circuit here. This circuit, you will create a pendulum like swinging motion with this bookcase so that the circuit like intermittently gets cut off like that. And we can just dash right through it, deactivate the circuit at the right time to make things go a little faster. And once we hit this switch, we are gonna get ready for the second boss fight. As you can see, the water here has turned red. We're just gonna fall into it and get ready to fight. This upcoming fight doesn't have too much going on. It's a really cool fight. I like the fight a lot, but there's not going to be too much interesting mechanically going on, but it's a good wind down. I think all of the bosses are good wind downs from kind of the intensity of these puzzles, if you can't tell from me talking for like 5 minutes straight. So I'm going to take this moment to rest a little bit while I do the fight. And Doodle, if you have anything you'd like to say, now is a great time.
I most certainly always have something to say. I'm a chatterbox. I want everyone to know that you are watching No Glitches Allowed 2026. No Glitches Allowed is an annual charity event featuring speedruns that rely on execution of intended mechanics and game-breaking glitches. No Glitches Allowed will be live from Wednesday, May 27th to Sunday, May 31st, raising money for Go Rescue Pet Adoption Center. See the full schedule, just type !schedule in chat. I also do want to remind all of you that we do have a very cool milestone coming up. We have the game Spin Rhythm. We can get $2,222.22. We can get that into the marathon. Like I said, we've already had a lot of music in here. I want more. Guess what? We also have, while you're getting there, a bid war. You can choose a playable character for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You can choose Rudolph, Clarence, Hermie, or Yukon Cornelius. I can't pick. Those are all my favorites. So I'm gonna leave it up to you, chat. ! Donate in the chat. Let's figure it out.
All right, thank you so much. I'm a big Rudolph fan, honestly.
Me too.
The big guy himself. But this part's pretty fun. You just have to swing around, not get grabbed by the lasers, but it looks cool. And like I said, swinging around is really fun. But the rest of this fight, thankfully, so this is kind of the point where as you're getting into these fights, the game maybe more expects you to have more health upgrades. But we do not, because those are bonus. I do not need to collect them. But like, for example, the lightning strikes in phase 1 of this fight do like 4 hearts. And if you get hit by the laser in that like swinging part, it does 3. And we hit 5 for reference. We're going to finish the game with 5. So they're really scary. Some of these bosses I'm definitely like gonna try and focus or maybe not try and score as hard if it's throwing me off a little, just because I want to survive them. Dying in any boss means starting over from the beginning, and I really don't want to have to do that too much. But as we get out of the second boss here, we're gonna get a cutscene with this guy, which sets up the story of this game a little bit more. I don't know how much to go into it, because A, you should definitely play this game yourself and experience it for yourself, and B, I kind of know what's going on, like, at best. It's one of those games where the story probably isn't hard enough to understand, but I'm very bad at thinking critically. like, there's pretty clear through lines. I have a general idea of what happens, but there's probably a lot of details that I don't fully get. But we're heading out of the boss here, and like I said back when we were doing the snowy area, there was a checkpoint I really wanted to make sure I got. We're about to get introduced to, like, the most important checkpoint in the run, under bridge. If you remember the snowy area, how it was like a giant bridge, there was an elevator under it. And we're going to use that once we leave the next two boss fights to get to the next two areas. I'm going right past the elevator, my bad. It's just right up here. So I'm gonna go under bridge. There it is. The only reason I'm so aware of it is because I did have a practice run where it just, like, didn't grab the elevator, and I lost several minutes for it. Not several minutes, but, like, a minute or so. But coming up is the area that I think is executionally, like, one of, if not the hardest to do fast in the game. This is the Nothing Factory. And it is... there's a lot going on here. There's... the main idea of the puzzles here is going to be, like, these time knobs. There are, as you can see, these, like, water blocks and these little clocks on the... I didn't do that correctly. It's fine. Like, these little water blocks and these clocks on the side of the wall that turn the, like, summertime to wintertime and will freeze the blocks of ice in place. Pretty difficult to, like, handle perfectly, but there's some really fun puzzles with them. This next thing we're gonna do is actually almost nothing. Pretty much at this point we get introduced to the main part of the area, the hand mechanism. We have to complete puzzles on all four sides to hit these switches to disable the mechanism and allow us to get into the boss fights. So we have to rotate it to open new doors. Coming up next is, I think, one of the hardest individual portions of the run. We're gonna get this, like, lava giant section, and usually there's a block. You can see, like, the block with the blue lining up there. We would have to guide that block through this whole lava room. But that's not fast. And, like, ride it around. So instead, I'm just gonna place gravity wells on the floor and wall of the lava rooms, and try and just fling myself where I need to be. I made it here, but I didn't do this parry section correctly, so I gotta do it again. Perfect. And yeah, that's where the switch is, and we can save and quit back to the mechanism for one more puzzle. So this puzzle is pretty simple, but it's still pretty cool. We just have to kind of abuse some of the walls that appear and disappear during the daytime and the nighttime, or the summer and the winter, sorry. I don't know why I got those mixed up, but it's fine. That well is a little bit, just not enough. There we go. This game does something I like a lot with its puzzles, where it'll, like, put a switch on a ceiling, and then to finish the puzzle, you have to, like, the block will only activate the switch if it's gravitated in a certain direction. And there's, like, a really fun push and pull with those strats. But coming up, we get the third boss fight. Of, like, the 6 fights in the game I'm gonna do, this is one of the 2 fights in the game that actually has something I can do to speed it up. There are 3 sections to this fight, and the second of 3 sections is going to be the one we can do something. So I do still have to do, like, this musical first and third section, but I want to take this time to shout out the music, because it's really good. This game's full soundtrack is amazing. But I mentioned earlier that polyrhythm can kind of be a big thing in this game, and the, like, 3 post-first bosses all have pretty funny time signatures. The first fight we did was in 5-4. This one is in 7-8. And the spoilers, the next boss we're gonna do is in 9-8. So it really tests you in a really fun way. But I know if there's people worried about their musicality in that aspect, there is a setting, I believe, that turns, like... it, like, turns the parry timing way up much. So if you're worried about that, you don't have to. But here we go into part 2 of the fight. There's going to be the snake. It's going to rise from the ground around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get myself to fall off of this sandbox. I didn't lock my gravity. It's fine. I'm going to try and fall off like the wall of the sandbox as the snake comes out. And that will like get me onto the snake as fast as possible. And then this phase lasts for as long as the snake is standing. So we have to destroy this thing as fast as possible. We have to use the weight plate to like get rid of these 3 orbs. And then my gravity, it's just being funky. And then we have to smash the head. I can play a little bit risky with the head of the snake. I don't need to smash specifically the spot on the head. I just kind of need to use the plate at all. Unfortunately, my gravity was a little messed up there and I fell off of it. But it should be a pretty easy recovery. Yeah. I can just like jump this way and we'll be good. Unfortunately, a little bit of a rough snake, but the rest of this fight is really cool. This might be my favorite fight in the game. Not just from a speedrun context, because it's one of the ones we can speed up. But I really like this song. And there we go. That is the end of the bully. So we only have now one more boss fight before we get into like the ending portion of the game. I'm gonna just go down this hallway. We're gonna get more cutscene. You know, the same thing we've done in the last few fights. And then we'll be on our way to our final main area of the run. You might remember the like gambler palace I stepped in for like 20 seconds right after getting the needle and thread, like a little over 15 minutes ago. We're gonna head back there. So I'm just gonna fall into here. And we're going to head on out. We're going to, just like before, use the elevator, go back to under bridge because it's the best checkpoint in the run for some reason. I didn't make it onto the platform. That's unfortunate. Just over here. Yeah. I'm gonna use this tube to get myself over there. There we go. There. This is a pretty little funny thing I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna try and get my gravity to be pretty specific on a point of this bridge, just like that, so that I can stomp right here, and it'll get me pretty close to the statue itself. Just like that, do this little shadow puzzle, and we are going to head into the Gambler Palace. So the Gambler Palace is like actually a little bit more involved than the other areas. On top of like everything going on, there are like, you know, on top of just like the whole like objective of it all, there are also these card sets. There's one for each suit of cards, and they all act as keys for the area. So we are going to route pretty heavily around this. This is actually why we do that one sword like through the secret tunnel, because doing like getting that sword otherwise would be behind a card suit that is kind of time consuming to get, especially when we can just not get it. So I'm gonna grab the diamonds near the first sword we grab, and then grab the clubs here, and those are the only 2 I'm gonna need for the rest of this area. So I'm gonna head up here. We're gonna see the diamonds over here. This puzzle actually has a pretty funny skip. I'm going to set myself up to like have this puzzle almost solved. You're supposed to use gravity on this like mirror block above me to get this switch to toggle at the right time, but I just kind of fall while holding onto the switch, and it allows me to fall through that electricity tunnel. And then we get to this upcoming puzzle. The last puzzle we do in the run is a very fitting last puzzle. It is like a gauntlet of me moving 2 blocks around simultaneously trying to like get a key activated. So here it goes. I need to like drag this over here. That demonstrates that if these like walls will break when they interact with a block like this. I then need to drag this block over here so that it can reflect this like red light that I'm about to turn on. I can go into the cage that the initial block was in to turn on this red light, just like that. And then here, I like disconnected this blue light earlier, so this light is red now. I'm gonna use it to break this wall and then set it up on a pink switch. There's a block in here. Now we're going to enact, hopefully, if I place my wells correctly, we are going to enact the Great Block Replacement. We're gonna just try and switch their spots. Because the first block we have is the one with the key on it that we need to actually like do this puzzle. So I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna try and get this block right here, this block here. And then using the pink light, it'll put a gate here so that this block can be facing the way it needs to activate the switch. I missed. Hopefully this just works. Yeah, that just works. Yeah, so that is a very in-depth puzzle. Like, there's a hint system in this game. You might have seen the phone that's like right outside that puzzle. Usually the phone guy, Oscar, just tries to give you like kind of vague hints towards the solution of a puzzle. He straight up just like tells you how to do that one. Obviously not telling you the exact moves, but he goes through like all the steps pretty much because there are so many. But it is a really fun puzzle to like figure out how to do on your own and execute. I love it so much. With that being said, we're going to get into the last boss fight before the final section of the game begins. This is the Cannibal. The Cannibal is interesting. He's going to start this fight with this gun. I need to make sure I parry this correctly because this deals 5 hearts of damage. As I mentioned earlier, I start with 5 hearts of damage. Once he switches to the sword, I am not in one-hit KO territory, thankfully. But this fight, we're going to get into the second part of it soon. This fight, I would say, is one of the most, like, spiral. Like, if you're not careful and you get hit once, it's very easy to, like, re-find the rhythm. So, Doodle, I'm going to let you say anything you need to say, because this is kind of one of those fights I'm going to need to focus on more than anything.
Alrighty, I just want to everyone who's just joining us to let you know who we are and what we're here for. We are No Glitches Allowed 2026, and we are raising money for Go Rescue, a dog shelter in Hampton, Virginia. In 2011, a local woman named Georgia Obanaz lost her home, and her only focus became how to prevent her family dogs from going back to animal control. Starting out with just an empty shell of a building, Go Rescue soon became not just a place for her current rescues, but a shelter that has grown to rescue over 2,000 dogs to date, with no signs of slowing down. And speaking of 2,000, I just want to remind you, chat, we do have a milestone to reach, $2,222.22, and we can get the game Spin Rhythm into the marathon. More music, more marathon, what's not to love? Also, we have a bid war. Playable character for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You have the title character Rudolph, you Claris, Hermie, or our favorite little Yukon Cornelius. Come on, chat, tell me, which one do you want with your donations? ! Donate in the chat.
So, unfortunately, I died to the very last attack.
Oh no!
So I hope you like this fight, because you get to see it again.
You're just clearly giving us more time to get to that incentive and pick our favorite character for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah. I do really like Spin Rhythm. That was a great game. I will buy all the time in the world I need to get that in the marathon, but we won't need to buy time if you feel so inclined. If you know what I'm saying.
I feel the beat of what you're laying down.
Mm-hmm. I'm a very big rhythm game person. I played a rhythm game last No Glitches Allowed. But this time I am actually behind the speedrunner wheel.
certainly
Which
like
makes you
watching
think
them.
it'd be
I'm
really
like,
embarrassing to die to a rhythm game boss in a game I speedrun, but you know how it is.
yeah. I mean, I love watching them. I'm just not terribly good at playing them myself. My jaw always hits the floor when I see the amazing speed and patterns that rhythm gamers have.
Yeah. Trust me, there are rhythm games that I'm good enough to like showcase at events. I'm still amazed by other people who are good at them. Okay, this time I have full health going into this last attack, so it shouldn't be a catastrophe. Yeah, there we go. I think with invincibility frames, I could not even die if I wanted to right now. Yeah, like I said, this is a fight that I find spirals really, really easy. So that's not the fight I'm... If I were to die on a fight during this event, that's the one I would have guessed. But we're finally moving out of the last of the like 3 fights I mentioned we need to do to activate the finale section, which means we're gonna head to the end of the game. I do have just like a... I have to wait for a cutscene to activate here. It's only gonna take like 5 to 10 seconds-ish. I just have to get over here, and then eventually we'll get worked to the final area. There it is. So here we're going to finally talk to Wonder. This game takes place in like a weird direct like dimension or something that Wonder is like the one running things in. So this is the first fight against Wonder. Spoilers, we're gonna get 2. This fight is really interesting. There's 5 segments to it that are like all weirdly different themes. This one being the rock concert. The interesting thing about this fight is that it actually randomizes the order of the 5 segments. So I don't know what order they're going to be in this, like, until I see them. So I'm usually hoping for some of the harder ones to be done first, so that if I struggle with them and mess up and die, I don't have to, you know, it won't be later in the fight. Yeah, the boxing match is one of the harder ones. The last one I'm really hoping to see soon is the chess match. That's the one I like. The chess match, kind of similar to the Cannibal, is just a fight I think is, like, very easy to spiral out of control on. So at this point, we have what I think is like the easiest and the hardest one left. And of course, we're getting that chess one last. So yeah, here we are at the last one. Thankfully, I have so much healing. I should be fine. There we go. I did really well there. So that is the end of the first fight against Wonder. And now we're finally getting thrown out of that dimension I mentioned. We're finally back to normal, I guess. I want to give a special shout out. Thank you everyone again who donated in the bid war for Stephanie's costume. This is what the gym clothes would have been. The game back in the real world, I guess, always throws you in them. And you can only play as them once you beat the game. But like I mentioned at the start, using the like post-game costume thing. You can wear them the whole game on a new file. But regardless of the bid war, you always get a special, like, throw to this outfit. But we do have one more fight that will be done in our outfit of choice, so don't be worried. We're not stuck like this for the rest of the run. Like I mentioned, this is the real world. We're back from whatever the heck happened, and we're gonna do totally normal real world things. You know, totally normal real world things. So coming up, we are going to step into this hospital room, and this will be the trigger that gets us into the start of the final fight. There are two phases to this. The first one is like the only other boss fight thing in the game I can speed up. We have to hit these like 5 cores here. So I have to reach them and hit them in any order. And then as soon as I deal the last bit of damage to the last like weak point here, it will be like about 1 minute and 15 seconds before the game ends. So just a heads up for those who need it. We are like pretty close to the end. A funny part of this fight is that its tempo, as you might be able to tell by the metronome on the bottom right, is really fast. A fun side effect of this game being tied to its music means that our dash recharges really fast here. So we can use it to kind of glide across the air a bit easier. I'm gonna go for this one first. There we go, and then I'm just gonna fall over here. And like I mentioned, from right here, we're like 1 minute and 15 seconds out from the game ending, assuming I don't die, which I shouldn't, but let's not jinx it. Yeah, there's not a lot of scary attacks in this fight. I have a weird tendency to just snowball downhill in that fight. I'm not exactly sure what it is. But yeah, we are going to eventually do this and get sent back to this screen, and time is going to be whenever we skip the dialogue box that shows up in about 5 seconds. And that's time. And that's Metro Gravity. I want to take this opportunity to shout out Marko Popovic, as for you see once the credits begin. Yeah. This game is really cool, though. Like I've said throughout the whole run, and as you've probably seen throughout the whole run, this game is amazing. I love this game so much. I played it at the top of the year, and it's one of the best things I've played this year. It's from last year, not this year, but like still. I'm so happy about this game. And I'm so happy that it was taken for this event. Thank you so much for having me. I don't have any too specific shout-outs other than the other runners of this game. Anemion and Melon Marble Pop are like the 2 people above me on the boards, I think. And they've both done a lot for like making this game as cool as it is with their routes and their movement. So big shout outs to them, because if I was alone in labbing this game, I definitely would not have found as much cool stuff. I am not that type of person, so big shout out to them. But I'm so glad I was able to show it off. I know I did die during the fight, and my estimate's a little tight, so I don't want to like take too much time. Just say thank you all so much for having me. And if you want to see more of me, you can find me on Twitch and Blue Sky under LaurieDBunnykins. And you can also find me tomorrow. I am running Octopath Traveler with a bid war for which main character I use. So if that excites you, please check it out tomorrow. Keep watching the rest of the event. I'm a big fan of this whole event. And have a great rest of your day.
All right, server is deafened. Laurie, great run.
Thank you. I feel pretty good about that. Yeah.
All right. I am not in charge, but I'm assuming you can chill and wander off if you'd like, Laurie.
I think so. I'll wait a second just in case. Okay. I will